How many of y'all know the difference between an independent deal and a major label? Anybody? Kind of really know the difference? Because that's one of the most important things, is understanding what that difference is. A lot of times, guys will go to like Sony Red, go to EMI Label Services, go to Asylum, and they get signed to a deal, and they're under this impression that it works the same way as a frontline deal. But there's an inherent difference between the two, and I'm going to try my best to explain the two to you, and also try to end off explaining the importance of an A&R in your life as an artist when you get a deal, all right? So, let's start off there. So nobody really knows the difference between the two. All right. A frontline deal is a deal where, let's say he is an artist. Let's say I'm an A&R rep at Sony, right? He comes to me, he says, I want a deal. I listen to his music. I decide I want to sign him. I present him to my bosses. Let's say the whole process goes and he gets a deal with us, right? Now, what a frontline deal is saying is that we're going to do everything, basically. We're going to fund the project. We're going to do your marketing. We're going to do your promotions. We're going to handle your publicity. We're going to help you shoot a video. And we're going to pay for all those things. Now, in return for that, you're going to pay us 50% of everything, just because we entered into an agreement. Then, you're still responsible for paying us back the money we spent on you. So we're going to use a hypothetical number. Let's say you got signed for $500,000, right? So in your mind, it's like, yo, I just got $500,000. I'm ready. I'm going to go get this chain. Let me go cop a Benz. Let me get out here and do these things, right? So let's say out of the $500,000, which really, let's say $250,000 of that goes to actually recording the album, paying the producers, paying songwriters. You know, the heavyweights charge $20,000 to $40,000 a record. So if you want a record from them, it's going to cost you. But I want these guys. They got hits with Neo, whatever. Okay, you pay them $40,000. Let's say Neo, they got a record with Neo. We just sold a record that Neo's featured on the record. Not only do you have to pay them, you got to pay Neo, and you got to pay Def Jam. So let's say that $500,000 now went to, we got about $20,000 left. Because Neo wants 60. You know what I'm saying? He got to get 60 off the top. Def Jam probably don't want 20. Plus, they're going to want to use back on the record. What that means is that you ever see those compilations on commercials where it's like dance music now or R&B now? That's a use back. So Def Jam is going to say, well, we put compilations out. So after you're done with the record, we want the rights to the record in return for letting you use Neo. So that's another important thing. We'll try to touch more on that later. So, all right, you got about $20,000 left. That's your kickback money, basically. That's your advance. So what they're saying is they estimate that out of that $500,000, $480,000 is going to go into actually getting the album ready, and there's going to be $20,000 in surplus. That's what they give you up front. They advance it to you. Said that money's not meant for you to set yourself up to buy a chain or do whatever you do. It's really just to give you just enough money to survive long enough to do an album. You understand? And that's another thing people don't understand. When they think advance, they think I'm going to get a big check, I can chill, this is money to play with. No, this is just money, this is McDonald's money. That's money so that you spend the entire year basically working on your album. That's your job now. Your salary is the $20,000. So that's, okay. So now, from there, that $500,000, you have to pay it back. But you don't pay it back out of that 50%. See, most people think when they get a deal that the record company takes all the money in the beginning. So they think that they're actually paying off that debt with the record company's portion of the money. That's not the case. That 50% that the record company took off the top just for doing the deal has nothing to do with what you owe. So you need to understand that very closely, because this is why a lot of artists are broke right now. And there's only like 3 or 4 artists in the game that actually have money. All right? So there's 50% left. Out of the remaining 50%, the producers, the songwriters, you as the artist, your lawyer, your accountant, your manager, and everybody else got to get paid out of that percentage. So at the end of that 50%, you're probably left with about 12 points, which is roughly 12% of whether it's wholesale or retail sale, depending on which label you sign to. Sony works against wholesale, but you're not going to get 12 points. Your contract will probably say 6 to 8 points, because it has to balance out. Now, if it's like Universal, EMI, it's retail price. So if you're talking $9 a record, 12% of $9 is what you get. But you don't get that money because you're responsible to pay back the $500,000 that they gave you to record the album out of your 12%. Because the other percentages for producers, songwriters, etc., and lawyers and everything have nothing to do with the money you owe, right? So now we're at 500,000. That's just recording the album. Now you got, let's say that you want 3 videos. Now of course you say, man, I want Hype Williams to do my video. I want Lil X. Hype Williams want $1 million a video. So let's say Sony says, all right, we're gonna fund that. They give you $1 million to do a video, and you still got the responsibility to do 2 more. That's 50%. So if they spent $2 million on 3 videos, you owe them $1 million. So now we're in the hole for 1.5 million, right? Now you say, I need to market, I need to promote this album. So they say, okay, we got that. We're going to market and promote for you, right? They're going to give you a fictitious number of $1 million for marketing and $1 million for promotions. So now where are we at? $3.5 million? We in the hole? We ain't even did nothing yet. You already in the hole with $3.5 million. We ain't put the record out, son. You understand what I'm saying? That's how it starts. But you're responsible to pay that $3.5 million out of your 12%, not out of the 50%. So when you think you're paying off your debt, you're not. So in order to make that money back, you got to sell at least 10 million albums to even recoup. Based on 12%, let's just keep it 100. You take $9 a record. So let's say 10% of that is what? $9.90, right? So you're working on 90 cents. How many records you got to sell? 10 million times 90 cents? You're still in debt at the end of the day. This is why the record companies now want to do 360 deals, because the record company is saying, I'm shelling out this money, which is still fictitious in terms of marketing, promotions, and publicity, but to them, they're shelling this money out. And I'm not making my money back because nobody's selling 10 million records anymore. So now I got to find other ways to make money off of it. So now I want a 360 deal. Because of the fact that I put you out, let's say you sold 500,000 records. That's pretty damn good in this environment, right? So you do some gold, that's good. Now let's say McDonald's approaches you and says, look man, we're going to give you a little commercial deal. We want you to go on a little McDonald's tour. We're going to pay you $350,000 just to have your likeness and appearance on a little McDonald's thing. Okay, so now that's your merchandising deal. That's your licensing deal, right? Now Universal is saying, well shit, you only got that because we put you out. So I need a piece of that bread. So now you're paying them 30% of any merchandising. Let's say you sell t-shirts on the road. Or you get a deal with a clothing company, Mark Echo approaches you and says, we're going to do the J Live shirts. You know, or like the Coke Boys shirts that French Montana and them got, right? Let's say they got paid a couple $100,000 to set that up. Well, now Universal says, well, I got to get a piece of that. Because you wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't for me. If I didn't put your record out. Right? So now you're taking 20 to 30% of that. Now you go on tour. Now let's say because you went gold, you can roughly charge somewhere between $7,500 and $10,000 a show. And now Universal's saying, well, I got to get a piece of that too, because you wouldn't be touring if it wasn't for me. So now,
like, is that like automatic, or is that just if you were like in debt or like that?
No, that's automatic, bro. They're getting that. Like, there's no way around it. That's why it's called a 360 deal. They're telling you up front, like. All the record companies do it, and I say this every single time I do any type of speaking engagements. A record company is impartial to the creative progression of music. Do not forget that. I made it up, I'm proud of the statement, and it's going to go in a book somewhere. Seriously, a record company is impartial to the creative progression of music. What that means is that they're not in the business to make creative artists. They're in the business to sell records. That's it. Their whole purpose is to put records in the stores and make money off of it. They don't give a damn what you sound like. They don't care what the sound is. So when you read, a lot of times, like we go online and I read these articles where people are saying, yo, record companies are killing the business. They're really not. Because the truth of the matter is the consumer affects what goes out. The consumer decides what's going to blow up and what's not going to blow up. A record company just puts it out there. So when you got guys who say, oh, I want more creative music, I want more comment, I want more this. Okay, we put a comment album out, but no one buys it. They bought 50 Cent. So what is a record company going to do? He's going to put out more 50 Cent. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, they're in the business that what keeps their lights on, what keeps the salaries paid, what keeps them going is record sales. That's it. And now with 360 deals, they're making money off of everything. So now you like Wiz Khalifa, for example. Wiz Khalifa did fairly well. He really didn't sell a ton of records, but the guy made a lot of money. He made Forbes' list of the top urban artists. He made $6 million last year, right? And the reason why he did is because he stayed on the road. The guy did like 200 shows last year. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot for a rap artist. But he didn't care. He did whatever he had to do because he understood the reality of his bad situation with a record deal. to work yourself. You need to get online and virally promote your craft as much as you can. But how do you get signed? Well, look at Odd Future, look at A$AP Rocky. There's a couple other little artists that, Yellow Wolf, these guys went so hard on the viral campaign that they were able to create a movement for themselves. Because records don't sell records, movements sell records. Understand your consumer. You have to understand the demographic. 85% of today's sales audience is 16 to 19-year-old white suburban females. They constitute 85% of the consumer. So if you're not making records that they vibe with, guess what? You're only selling records to the other 15%. So now you're in a situation where you really ain't selling no records. And Wiz Khalifa, again, is a good example. This guy, if y'all, any of y'all remember, I know all y'all be on the game, y'all see all the independent artists. When Wiz Khalifa was rocking for like 8 years, this nigga was on videos with guns and ratchets all on the table talking about murder, death, kill, this and that. And all of a sudden this guy's like the college dropout. Why? Because he started to understand the consumer. And he said, okay, I can't sell this music to this consumer. So how do I now make music that the consumer will digest without compromising my identity so much that I'm not who I say I am? You understand? And this is the other thing you have to do. It's your responsibility to learn who your consumer is and make records that the consumer will digest, that they'll gravitate and identify with, and yet not compromise the identity of who you are. That's the other important thing. Now, an independent deal, which I'm assuming no one knows, really understands the nature of that either. An independent deal is a little different, and it's different in the sense that the two major differences is the money, obviously, and I mean it on both sides of the fence, how much money they're giving you, and how much money you're going to make. And the other, in terms of your responsibility, it's the same. The bottom line is find a hit record, right? That's the bottom line. Before you can do any of the things we talked about today, and I know we went over a lot, but before you can get to any of that, number one is you need a hit record. If the record can go from the car to the crib to the club, and it translates in all three environments, it's a fucking hit.